All right, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're attending from. Today, we're going to take a little walk through the generic inquiry screen and some of the outputs that it can do, and maybe give you a few little tips and tricks along the way. Might be a little basic for some folks that maybe I'm seeing some people in the attendee list that probably have a little more experience in the generic inquiry screen than others. So might be a little bit more of a review, but hopefully you can get something out of it. We do record these and we will post these up on our website. And I think these go out to our customers as an email. We've got Natalie on from our marketing department, so she'll be taking any notes as you guys, if you put any Q&As in the Q&A list or in the chat. So feel free to ask questions as we go through, and I'm going to hopefully leave a pretty good amount of time at the end so that if you have questions, if you'll just raise your hand in the Zoom call, then we'll call on you to ask your question or put it on the table. I'll try to answer them. If not, if I can't do it right here, then we will definitely take those and follow up on the with you after the meeting. So what we're going to do this morning is it's going to be a pretty easy agenda. We're going to look at what's in the generic inquiry module. We're going to take a look at some of the different things that you can do from a column standpoint of putting fields in and out. We're going to look at the advanced filters. We're going to look at actually kind of behind the scenes, like how you would create a simple GI, and then look at some of the tools that you can export this data to. And then as always, you always have access to the Acumatica Open University, and there's quite a bit of information on that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the last slide up. And if you want to take a screenshot of that, I've got the two customer success managers, their emails and the phone number there. If you have questions after, please reach out to Ben or Karen, and they can make sure that we get the information that you're requesting back to you. And with that, I'm going to move it over to our demo site, and we'll get started. So can everybody see the screen? If you can, just raise your hand and we'll make sure. Or Natalie, can you see it? If you can let me know, we'll
Yep,
go
looks
from
great.
there. So one of the things that, the GI tool is, think of it as kind of an ad hoc report writer. And what it does is it creates an Excel type of output. And right here, I'm showing a controller dashboard, but all of these little tiles on the controller dashboard, the backend data for these is a generic inquiry. So generic inquiries can be used as just a general list of items or data. It can be used to feed our dashboards. It can also be used to feed Excel or Power BI or Tableau or some of the other database BI tools that you would be able to use that to get in and see that generic inquiry data at a more powerful level. One of the things that I am going to show just briefly today is the Velixo tool. And Velixo is a Excel add-in that allows you to now, they have exposed formulas within Velixo to be able to read in generic inquiry data. So we're going to really leave our focus to the GI data and again, using the various tools that we can, either within Acumatica or external to it. So to kind of take that along, if I'm somebody in the company and I'm looking for data, what is the best way that I can go look at that? And I'm just going to use a simple example. So I'm going to go into the customer screen. And the customer screen, this is a list view, and this is built from a generic inquiry. So if I look over here under the customization, now again, you have to have access rights to be able to even see this piece of it. And then you have to have access rights to be able to go in and actually look at the underlying generic inquiry and be able to edit that. So some of you may or may not be able to see this customization button. If you don't, this is where you would want to work with your system administrator for Acumatica and see if you are able to have rights. Again, you're exposing the back end now basically to the Acumatica database. So you have to be very careful of what tables and access rights you want individuals to be able to see. Like if you have payroll, you probably don't want them to see payroll tables because they could use the generic inquiry tool to be able to reach in and see that information from an employee perspective. So just be very careful with that. Keep that in mind. Reach out to your system administrator. And if you're a system administrator on this call, if you need assistance, please just enter a support@pcbennett.com support request, and one of our support folks will give you a hand. So again, this list view to allow me to go into a customer is a generic inquiry. Some of them are Acumatica built and you won't be able to see the edit generic inquiry. So it's kind of a custom non-editable generic inquiry, but anyone that is editable, and then you have rights, you would be able to see this customization and then underneath it, the edit generic inquiry button. But for right now, I'm going to go into a customer. I'm just going to pick the first one there. I've actually got the modern UI turned on. So if you haven't seen that, or you just seen it in the webinars from Acumatica, this is what the new customer screen is going to look like when you upgrade to 24R1 or higher. It is on a screen-by-screen basis, so you have to actually go in and enable it. So it'll either say switch to modern UI or switch to classic, depending on which view that you're in. So again, in this one, I can only go backwards to the classic UI. At some point, they'll deprecate the classic and everything will be on the modern UI standpoint. But from this, I want to create a customer list. I've already created it, so we're just going to kind of step through it. But one of the things that Acumatica gives you is it gives you some tools to be able to see, how would I even go about starting to create a generic inquiry? So one of the things that you would do, and again, you have to have access rights to do this, there's this thing called inspect element that Acumatica has given us. And then if I click on that, you'll see it turns my cursor into a question mark. So now if I hover over a specific field, it will turn that field blue. And if I click into that, it's actually going to create a little pop-up. And that pop-up is going to tell me the data class. So the backend, think of it as if you're SQL familiar, think of it as a SQL table. Data access classes are a little more powerful because I can wrap a couple of SQL tables into what we call a view or a data access class. And it's kind of a virtual or dynamic build on run view of the multiple tables that I might do that. But in this instance, I'm tied to a specific table within Acumatica, and I can see it's AR and customer. And then the data field that I'm on is this account CD. One of the other tools that we have, you'll see we're hyperlinked here on that data class. If I click on that, it's going to open a new tab, and it's actually going to open up what we call the data access class schema browser. So this is it takes a little bit of time to pull up. I'm going to let it do that because it's kind of powerful in the sense that it gives you a lot of information. So you'll see I'm in my base data access class is the B account, but the display name for this one is customer and my namespace is AR. So AR-customer is the table. But what it does is it gives you a list of all of the fields that are in that table, which fields are key accounts. It gives you the data type for each one and the display name that is going to be associated with that. So when you actually add this field to a generic inquiry, so say we add the account CD, it's actually going to display the customer ID as the label. So pretty powerful there in that you can see now all of the the fields within your generic or your table as you're pushing them up to your generic inquiry. So I'm going to close that and go back to here. So again, just using that inspect element, I'm able to determine what table to add to my generic inquiry and what field I potentially want to add to that. One of the things that I want to show also is that this screen is pulling data from multiple tables. So you have to keep that in mind. So if I go back over to the inspect element, I come down to the address line. I'm actually now pulling from the CRM or the cr.address table. And again, it gives me the data field for that specific field that I'm clicking on. So if I needed to, in the generic inquiry editor, I would need to add my base table, which would be AR customer. And then I would also need to create a relationship by adding another table called CR address, and then creating a field-to-field relationship. And we'll look at that as we get a little bit deeper into the edit inquiry piece of it. So clear as mud for everybody? Hopefully so. Now what we'll do is we'll go into the generic inquiry tool, and that's located under customization. So if you're in your menu and you go to customization, you can click on that, and then it is going to give me a list of all of the things that are within the customization screen, and you'll see generic inquiry is under the profiles, and it's kind of right in the middle. So I'm going to click on that to open that screen. Now I'm showing this one in the classic view, just to kind of show you that it is screen by screen. And I'm going to pull one up that I've already started. And I started it with PC Bennett. So if I do PCB, you'll see it gives me all of the list for that. And I'm just going to pick the customer list one, select that one to bring it into the editor. And now you'll see that I have the basis for that, for a report that we're going to create. And what I did is I came down and I clicked on the new button, and I just started typing customers because I know that's where I want to be, what table sets that I want to see. And you'll see there's a bunch of them in here. So there's quite a few. So that's what that inspect element on the customer side helps me with, because it narrows down the window of what table I should really be focused on. And in this one, I want the AR customer because we know that was what was showing in the little pop-up. So I click that to create the AR customers screen. If I wanted to do or add the address, so I can just start typing address, and now we can see there's even more in this pull down, but we knew that the address list was in the CR address. I'm going to do it a little different way. I don't want to actually add it manually. So I'm going to delete that row and just leave it to the AR customer for right now, and kind of just walk through just a few things. So in the header, we have initially when you start, it's going to look something like this. So give it just a few seconds here while I unpublish it. And I've got to unpublish the OData piece. So this is how it's initially going to start out as. So when I start typing in my customer name as the new inquiry title, it's going to be blank down here. It'll be blank in all of the other tabs. And I have to physically add that table in as my base table or my driver table. If I want to publish it to my menu system, this is where I would go to publish to the UI. And what that's going to do is it's going to pop up a screen here, and it's going to say, okay, where do you want to put this? And in this case, you know what? I don't want it to go to the data views. I want to actually put it on my receivables menu, because that makes more sense for me. So I'm going to select that. I want it to go into my inquiries category. And now I can actually, in the newer versions of Acumatica, I can actually set permissions right here. So if I wanted to go set permissions to maybe another customer type of access, I would look for like customer something PL. So we'll just select that one. And that's going to inherit the access rights from that role. Again, if you have a custom role that you've already pre-built that gives access to the things you want them to have, you would just pick that right here and do the copy access from that. So I'm going to hit publish now, and it's going to actually go in the background, and it's going to now add that. So if I duplicate my tab here and I go back to my receivables, if I look under my inquiries, now you'll see that PCB-customer list is now showing up. So just that easy, I've deployed it. I've actually set access rights to it by using that copy from specific, access rights. And now it's deployed out to my users just that quickly. So in this instance, what I now wanted to do is, well, how do I get the information to show on the grid? So what I did is I actually selected, and I'm just going to do it down here, all fields, and I let it, once I clicked all fields, tabbed off and hit save, it actually brought in all of the fields that are available within that table for display. So it brings them in just as a lump and a batch into the grid here. That's really good from a standpoint of if you don't really know, if you didn't go into the DAC browser and see what was available from a field standpoint, that's a good way to kind of drop everything in. And then, maybe I don't want the country ID or a parent account or the created by, I can turn those off and on to my output. So I'm going to leave them on just so you can see what it looks like using the all fields. And now if I wanted to view this, all I would have to do is come up and hit the view inquiry, and then it's going to open up a new tab for me to view the output results. So in this case, I've created a very simple customer list. It's got, 5 pages worth of data, and it's got all of the various fields listed as columns that I have in that results grid panel. So a little bit from here, if I don't like the, the owner of the dashboard or the inquiry who created it, they kind of set the order of what the columns are going to come out left to right. If I don't really like that order, as a user, I can change it just for my profile. And I can do that one of 2 ways. I can come over here to the top left next to that customer ID, and I can click on the column configurator, and I can say, well, you know what? I want state to come up under city. I can highlight it, use the arrow keys to move it up and down, and hit OK. And then when I do that, it's going to move the state field from the far right to right behind the city piece. That holds for my login. Again, as the designer of the inquiry, I could have done the same thing by going back into my inquiry and actually just holding that and dragging that up to where I wanted it to be. And then now you'll see I've got city and state. So I can just move those up and down into the grid. And then when I hit save, we'll close this one out and then we'll view it again. It's going to automatically push that out to all of my users. And then again, if I didn't want state there, I could do the column configurator, move it that way. Or if I wanted to do it, I can just actually drag and drop it in the column just by selecting the gray area. So if I wanted country over at the end, I could just drag that over. That will hold for my user login every time that I come in, but somebody else logs in, they open this, they're going to see it the way the designer designed it from the result grid. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, if I wanted to go back to that base configuration, I always have the ability to go reset to default. And when I hit OK, then it's going to move those back the way the designer wanted those to be. Couple of other tips as you're as you're viewing the data. There's a couple of neat things that if I highlight that, I can now see, if I right click, I can see some additional pieces of things that I can do from a filtering standpoint. So I can filter by this specific cell, which I can do Shift F, or just click that, and then it's going to filter down to anything that contains that AA customer ID. So, and you'll see it put that up here as a quick filter. From that standpoint, I can change that. So if I do that, it'll pull up my customer list. I could change it to a bartender, and then it will filter that down there. It changes it up here. If I want to remove that quick filter, I can just click on it, come to remove quick filter, and it will do that. I can also drag up into my header. So you'll see it's showing all customer classes and all customer statuses here. I can also add additional ones by just grabbing in the gray area of a column and bringing it up into it was already filtering on that one, so it just kind of moved it over. But say I wanted to do city, so I can just drag city up as a third filter selection, and now I have the ability to filter out, and I can do equals, and I can say, well, you know, I'm from Texas, I want to see everything from Texas, and I do that, and then it's going to not work. So actually it was city, so I want state. Hang on. Let's do state. So I can do equals Texas, and now it'll filter out by the state's filter for all the customers that are in that state. From here, I have some even more tools that I can use. So you can see over here, I've got a funnel and I've got a save button. If I save this right now, it's going to save it with my quick filter set to Texas. So I can say, you know what, I want all of my Texas customers to be a tab filter on my system. And you'll see there's a little button here called shared configuration. If I don't check that, this is only going to be applicable to my user profile. So when I log in, I would be the only one that would be able to see the tab with filtered down to Texas customers. If I share it, then everybody in the company that has the access role that I've applied to this generic inquiry are going to be able to see the tab that it creates. So we'll do the shared configuration. Hit OK, and you're going to notice that now I get a couple of new tabs up here. I get one that shows all records, and then I get one that says Texas. So now I've created, just by clicking the little save icon, I've now created a quick filter that I can use as a tab, and then now quickly jump between those different pieces. I also have the ability to go in and create filters. So if I click on the filter setting button, which is a little funnel, now I can come in here and start adding different conditions that maybe I want to show only those customers that are active. So I can say customer status equals, and then just by the fact that Acumatica knows that I have a set amount of selections that I can use, it gives you a pull down that says, well, what are the different values that could be held for a customer? Well, active, on hold, credit hold one time, inactive. So you can see very quickly and very powerfully, I can create some tabs up here that are now meaningful, but I can do it very quickly. So if I hit save, it's actually, I need to give it a, let's see, we'll apply it. So now I've got my Texas. We'll remove this. We'll go to all records. Let me back up and do it again. So I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to select customer status equals active, and I'm going to hit save. And now it gives me the ability to put a filter on this. So we're going to say active and hit OK. And then now if I apply that, now you'll see I've got an active tab up here as well. And it's only going to show all of the active customers that are there. So now I can still, from here, I can, within my active status, I can come in here and drag. You can see it says drag column header here to configure filter. So if I wanted to now see my active Texas states, I can now come in and do that as well by just doing that. So again, very quickly, I'm adding power so that either I can see it or my additional users can see it. Any questions so far? Anything that anyone's had struggles with that you may need help, just go ahead and throw them in the chat and we'll try to answer them here in a little bit. But I just wanted to kind of get through some of the core things that you can have when you're using GIs. You also have, and I think probably if you're a customer and you've been using Acumatica, you know that we have filters or search buttons that we can use to look at things. So, you know, I can filter down to, you know, if I have a specific customer that I want to look at, I want to look at Bank of America, I can just type that in here or click the search button, and then it will let me see those records at that point. If I clear that, it's going to take me back to my other list. The other thing is by column, I can then do those quick filters again. So I could have done that by clicking on the customer ID, and I could do equals. If I hit that, it will look at my customer IDs. But say I don't know, you know, the exact ID, but I want to search for it that way, and I want to look for something that starts with border. If I hit OK, now you can see it'll filter it down to borders books in this instance. If I want to clear that filter, I can just drag that off out into the white space, and then that is going to take me back to my all records listing. And again, that was super easy to do, right? It took like 5 minutes to create the GI. I published it to the menu and I viewed it, and now I'm able to see that data very quickly as a GI in the system. So, you know, the power is there for you to harness. I also created these extra filters as additional tabs that I can now, as I go out and come back in, those are going to stay active through my profile or to other users if they have access rights to it. And it looks like Patrick has asked a question. It says, since this is GI is published, is the data static? Will we need to refresh the query to get new customers? So that's a great question. So if I was back in the receivables menu and I clicked on it again, it is going to automatically refresh the data and re-pull it. If I'm in here and I've done a bunch of things, you know, move columns around, somebody in the background, our customer success team has added 5 more customers to the database. This would be static as of that time that I clicked on the menu and it refreshed. But what I do have is up here in the top left, I have a refresh button. So if I click that, then it will actually go out and re-pull the data and bring it back in. One of the other things, kind of just a quick tool, is, you know, if I have a really wide column set, and, you know, Acumatica does kind of a best try at column widths and those type of things. So I do have the ability in my designer field to, one, rename the label that is going to be published. So if I didn't like, you know, customer ID and I wanted it to just be customer, I can do that here. So from that standpoint, I can override what the display name is going to be, which in this case, the data field is ACCT CD, but we know from the schema browser that the display name was customer ID. But I just wanted to say customer. So as a designer, I can override those captions here in this caption field. And I can also define a width for that. So if I wanted to make this a certain pixel width and length, then I could play around with that and make that, you know, a default. We'll set it for 50 to see what it does. And then we'll close these and we'll reopen it. So I'm gonna set that to 50. It now should say customer, and you can see it's changed the width. So again, as the designer, I would kind of have to play around with that and say, well, you know, maybe it's 150. We'll see what that does. We'll close it, do view inquiry again. Now it's still probably a little wide because based on my segment length of that field, I could probably scooch that in a little bit and make it look a little bit better. But again, if I've got 100 columns out here, there is a little button up here that will say fit to screen. So in this instance, when I hit fit to screen, you'll see it now takes up the whole width of the display. And it's kind of auto sized each field to do that. That's a real good way to kind of see everything. Again, if you've got 100 columns, it's going to get a little tight and it's going to make some where you can't see them, but just so that you know it's there. One of the other buttons, since we're right up here at the top list here of these quick buttons, refresh. Then I have one that's going to be cancel. So it's as if you're hitting the escape key. So if you didn't like what you did and you want to back out of it, you can hit that and push it out. I actually have the Velixo objects loaded in the database, and we'll do this at the very end. I can actually export this to a Velixo worksheet. And then I also have the ability to export to Excel. So if you don't have Velixo, which is the plugin for Excel, to be able to kind of think of Acumatica on steroids within Excel, I can still export this as an Excel sheet, and we'll do that. So I'm just going to hit the export to Excel, and I'm on a Mac, so it's going to pop up over here, and then I'll open Excel for Mac, and we can kind of walk through it. So you'll see it's named it PCB customer list 2024-10-24. So it date stamps it. If I hit open file, it's now going to bring that into my Excel sheet, and it's probably kind of small, so we'll blow it up here a little bit. So you'll see it's brought it in. I do get a little warning up at the top, just as normal when you bring in data. That's through an external connection. You have to enable that content. So what did that do in the background? In the background, if you go to the data tab on Excel and go to queries and connections, you'll see that it's now created a connection, but you don't get to see like the background information of what that connection is. It created it. It stays with this Excel sheet. So if I were to save this to my
Tim, we don't
local,
see the Excel sheet. Can you bring it up?
what's that?
We don't see the Excel sheet.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay. So again, sorry about that. It brought it in. There was an enable content warning at the top of the spreadsheet that I had to click that button to enable it. I went to my data tab, and now you'll see I have queries and connections, refresh data, so I can refresh all or just refresh specific tabs. In this instance, what I wanted to look at is I went to the connections, and you'll see it's just connecting to my customer list inquiry. So it's using that inquiry data to push that into an Excel sheet. I don't get to see really the OData stuff in the background right here. Even if I go to properties, I still don't see that. But this properties is pretty important because it will show. Natalie, do you see that pop up just before I keep going?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just keep trudging on. So you'll see it's named it to equal to my generic inquiry. I'm saving the definition. I'm enabling background refresh, But then you've got this next one that says refresh data when opening the file. And I can remove the external data and have it repoll, or it will just append. So it just depends on if you're deleting data in Acumatica and you want it to clear out everything that you have in the spreadsheet and then initialize the spreadsheet, you'll want to click that remove external data from worksheet before saving. And then it will automatically, when you open it the next time, it will clear everything out and then repull the data and bring all the new stuff down in. Again, you have additional options. It will allow you to retain formulas and cells in the sheet. What I tend to do when I'm designing spreadsheets is I'll use that data, but I'll create an extra sheet and then reference that data. That way I'm not impacting with formulas on this specific sheet, but I'm able to do various different things for other sheets by referencing that data sheet. Because if you have parameters or conditions, those are going to come into the parameters. And let me blow this up just a little bit. So if you had like customer ID equals, and then over here it was a customer or a bartender or whatever, you could actually modify the B column cells, the fields here, to pull different data from a conditional standpoint into your data tab based on those parameters. So again, you're getting a little more power now that I'm getting to push this into Excel. I can use the Excel components to be able to do that. And then what I would do is either I would close this, I would load it on my SharePoint or my OneDrive or my Dropbox or my local computer, wherever I want this to sit. When I open this back up based on those settings and the properties, it's going to refresh that data for me when I open it. I can also come up here and just hit refresh all, and you'll see at the very bottom of the Excel, it's saying running background query, click here to cancel. So it's actually now going to the database and it's pulling the data to bring that into the new sheet here. So that's how it would impact you through just kind of standard Excel. This is out of the box stuff. There's no additional things that you have to have for that. You have it natively as part of that. Oops, what do we do here? Let's go back to that. Natalie, do you see that now? The Acumatica screen?
Yep.
Okay, so just natively out of the box, all you have to do is hit the export to Excel, and then it will automatically push that out to that. Again, it stays with it. So the next time, depending on that properties, when you open that sheet a week later or a month later or a year later, when it opens, it's going to refresh the data and show the new data as refreshed. Patrick's asked another question. He says, is there much difference between using the Velixo product and just using the OData to connect to GI? Yes, and the main difference is once you connect that one sheet to that, then you are kind of locked to that one generic inquiry. Velixo, and we'll just kind of open it just so you can see it. So when you buy the Velixo product, it gives you a customization package that adds some Velixo related GIs to Acumatica. And then it also adds this export to Velixo workbook. So just makes it super easy because I can just click on that. It's actually going to now create again another Excel sheet. And when I open that one, you'll see now it's automatically pushed me into the Velixo connection editor. And now I would have to give it what tenant. So if you're a multi-tenant, you do have to put what tenant you're accessing, and then you would just use your username. I'm using admin.
And we can't see it again.
Oops, sorry, guys. This is what you get. How about now?
Perfect. Yep, we got it.
So it carried over this URL from hitting that Velixo button. This was empty. This was empty, and this was empty. So in this instance, you know, what I'll do is I'll just call this PCB just to keep it simple. So this is what you would use as your name for the template. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it as Velixo because it's going to automatically look at that. I'm going to use the URL. I'm going to put in the the tenant. In this instance, I know it's company, but if you had a specific name for a specific tenant that you wanted to point to, you would need to do that. Your username, I'm admin, and then my username password. And then I can, you know, do it just like with every login. I can say, remember my credentials and hit connect. And then if you had a problem, it's going to tell you something was wrong with it. If it didn't, it's going to push to this next screen. And then we should see a connection name of Velixo, type of Acumatica. And again, I could go back in and edit that from that standpoint. And then here, it's now pulling should pull in that customer list. Don't know why it's not working. So let's go to Velixo and do refresh and see if that fixes it. Nope. But it should have pulled in all of the data here, and it may be because I actually went in and tried to change that that status there. So let's do this, and we'll go back here. Oh, I know what I did. It's always something with Murphy on a demo. Apologize. We may not have to show it this time, but that's how it would work. We'll just talk through it. It actually, you click the Velixo, it would push it through. You still have to do your credentials to get those into the Velixo sheet. But what the Velixo actually allows you to do is you can now have multiple GI data that you're bringing into multiple sheets within your Excel sheet. And you can now use those to do reporting into a fourth sheet or a fifth sheet. And you can use that data that way. So a lot of power on that. The other side with Velixo is it was really initially built for doing financial pieces within Acumatica. Let me make sure we're shared again within Acumatica. So allowing you to just have a little bit more power on how you view that data. The other tools like Power BI, when you're in those, what you'll need to do is in the data connection on, I know for at least Power BI, let me pull up another screen so you can see it. I know for at least Power BI, and let me share this one. This is my little notepad. In Power BI, you would actually have to, between your URL, your base URL, and your site name or tenant name, or you would actually have to put the word OData in between for it to be able to pull into that that data source or use it as a data source. So that's the difference. If you go on to community.acumatica.com, that will and type in, connect via Power BI. There's a tech article on the community site that will actually walk you through how you connect it to Power BI. Tableau is very similar if you're using Domo or something like that. They're all pretty equivalent of how you connect, but you have to put that OData piece in between to make that work. Well, that's what I wanted to show for today, but if there are any more questions, just go ahead and we'll give you a few minutes to post them there. I'm going to pull back up the contact information that you can reach out to Ben or Karen if you already know who you're, whoops. Yeah, if I can figure out how this works. One more second here. If you know your customer success rep is, just reach out to them. If you have any additional questions, or if you want to look at Velixo or some of the other tools, just give them a shout. They can coordinate that and set that up from a demo standpoint. But hopefully this was useful and you got something out of it. Like I said, Natalie will be posting this to our website, to our YouTube channel, then sending these out as a follow-up from that. Jerry has one. He says, how reliable is ChatGPT or Anthropic to produce GIs? So I know with we use it internally, and I'll just use that, use at your own risk. It will get you some stuff in the ballpark. The one thing that you have to do is you have to put Acumatica in the inquiry request for ChatGPT, so that it will know to go look at the Acumatica content, and then it will actually pull in. Will it create an XML for you to import? I haven't tried that, but that's something that would be pretty cool if it would. There is a company out there called AccuPower that has written an integration to ChatGPT for Acumatica. So if you go out and look at AccuPower, if you call Ben or Karen, they can schedule a demo. Some of the stuff that I saw was really pretty cool in the sense that you can use natural query language to pull your data through the ChatGPT engine with the AccuPower integration. So you could ask it like, give me all my top sales for the last quarter, top customers from the last quarter in sales. And it will use that ChatGPT engine to then go in and look at the Acumatica database and pull that out in a more relatable way in either a bullet point or something like that. So getting to that data is becoming a little more easy, and that was pretty impressive what I saw, at least. We've got it. Nathan is playing around with it right now, and I think one of the next upcoming webinars, he's going to show that as a kind of show and tell. But yeah, it's if you're not looking at the AI stuff, you should be, because it's pretty powerful what you can do. And then with this integration, it allows you to get into your Acumatica database and use the engine to bring that forward. Let's see, Joanna, can you show us how to make connections to other tables in the inquiries? Okay, so let's go back into this one and we'll edit it right from here. So I think you're asking, how do I add additional tables to this? So what I would do is come here, and I can add them manually right here. I can then go in and say I wanted to add that address table. I can then just select that CR address right here. But once I save that, what I need to do is I actually need to do the relationship. The other way I could have done that is hit the add related table, and then it will actually pull in all of the tables that I can potentially connect to, that it knows there's a key relationship between the two tables. So in this instance, I could come down and see that CR address and hit add, and then it's going to add that table. But what it also did in the background is it should have added the relationships. But hang on, let me delete this and try that again. I don't know why it's doing that. This is kind of weird. So let's do this. We'll add the table. Uh, this is what happens when you have demo sites sometimes. Let's refresh. Let's delete this table. And I don't know why it's not giving me the add button here. Well, normally this would be available to add for additional tables. For some reason it's not working on my demo site, but I'll just add it manually, just so you can see how you would do it that way. It makes it easier because it will build the relationships for you when you use the add related table. If you use the add related table, it will build the joins for you basically from a standpoint. So it would build this information here. In this instance, what I've got to do is I've got to select the parent table, which is customers, and I've got to select my child table, which is address, and then I've got to come join them with key fields. So if there's multiple key fields, on the surface, you wouldn't know it from a manual standpoint. But I know it's the account ID for that one. So again, this is where it gets a little harder to do from a manual standpoint, where that add table, add related table, we'll just add a different one, see if it'll let me do it. We'll do AR address. So if I click on that one and hit select related table, you'll see it builds the join data for me. And if I hit add, crossing fingers this works, it added it there. So if I highlight that and go to relations, you'll see it added my key field relationship automatically there. So that's how you would add additional tables. And then once you hit save, when you go over to the result grids, now when you add a new output, you're going to have those 3 different tables to pick from. So if I wanted to bring in, the AR address information, now when it does that, it's going to filter down to only those fields that are in that table. So I could put my address ID, my address 1. So if these happen to be different, then it would pick those up from, whatever table they're pulling from. So if I hit view on that now, those 2 additional fields will be at the end. And you'll see I've got my address now, my address 1 over here. So it's pulling from that information from a secondary table. Hopefully that's what you wanted. So yeah, if you have additional questions, just let me know. And then the other one was from an anonymous attendee. When you use AI to query your data, does it make it public? And that's a good question. That I'm not sure. If you're using the Acupower integration, I don't think so. If you're using just standard chat GPT, I think it's not polling your specific Acumatica database. It's just polling the general databases that it has access to. I think with the Acupower, they are restricting that just to the local output within the Acumatica screens that you're seeing. So we have like 3 minutes. Anybody else have a question? There's still a few people in there. If not, hopefully this helped everybody out just a little bit. And if you have additional questions, my email is timo@pcbennett.com. So if you have questions that you want to just directly to me, feel free to do that. Otherwise, reach out to Ben and Karen, and hopefully you have a good rest of the week. Hopefully this was beneficial.